God our God is. You know one thing that I learned with this? Listen to this. It's that what you do, your works are secondary. Your worth is independent of your works. Listen to this, your importance to God is independent from the things you do. You have an inherent importance to God. You must be important. And isn't that exactly what the enemy is trying to convince us against of? The enemy is trying to convince us against the thought that we actually matter. In this time where everybody else's achievements are on display on Instagram and Facebook, everybody is showing their jewelry. Everybody's showing their bling. Everybody's showing what they're driving. Everybody's showing where they're going on vacation. And you can always find somebody that's doing a little bit better than you are. And it seems like our importance gets diminished. Why? Because nowadays, somebody that has several thousand followers on Instagram or any social media platform is now considered an influencer. People are actually being influenced by people whose lives are simply on display. And what we do is we diminish our own importance in favor of what society and culture try to determine you are worth. And there are brackets you fall into. If you have a certain amount of followers, if you drive this certain car, or if you live in a certain neighborhood, or if you are of a certain race or a certain gender, you have a certain amount of importance. No, you must be important because He came just for you. He came for you. Let me tell you something. He would do it all over again. Because Jesus is absolutely in love with you. With your eyes closed and your heads bowed, I want to minister to people today who don't maybe recognize their own importance in the overall scheme of things. And sometimes the overarching truth in our own minds is that we're not worth the effort. And sometimes we are depriving ourselves from a revelation that is keeping us from living the life that God has prepared for you and I. The fact of the matter is that it could be easier for God to just forget about you and I and start over again with somebody else. Why is it? Because we've made just the same mistake so many times. We've picked the wrong option just so many times. We've walked through the wrong door just so many times. We've been fooled, and we've slipped up just so many times. And maybe that's it. Maybe God is done with me. Maybe God is just picking somebody else now. Maybe it's time. It's somebody else's turn. It's not my own. I don't want to go through this all over again. It may be just easier for God to dispose of me and just forget about me. But I got to tell you something. God is not in the business of disposing of people. No. He is, oh my God, He is a pro on the art of redeeming something that has been lost and reconciling it to the truth that He has. You know, let me tell you something. God's statement about you could be different than your statement about yourself. If you were to write an autobiography, it would probably be a little different from the biography God would write about you. But you know what needs to happen is we are trying to reconcile God's statement to our vision. That's not the way it happens. God wants to reconcile your vision with His statement. That's what He did to Thomas. And for the life of me, I wish I had the time, because I would go over the life of Thomas to show you a few details and intricacies that shows Thomas's value to Jesus. And what we as the church do to call him Doubting Thomas is a disservice to who that man was. Do you know who you are? You are not your worst mistake. You are who God says you are. Come on, with your eyes closed and your heads bowed. Death